And this is David Waters with SEC Breakdown with Mike Loveall of Last Word on Sports. Mark Rogers usually joins us from Rogers TV, Chad Neipling of Fox Sports Arkansas and V Sport O. Those guys may jump in here a little while, but Mike and I, we're just going to discuss the big news right now. It's getting out there, and more news every day it seems. But the Tennessee allegations, and I just really want to dive straight in. But with Mike, Mike is dialed into the Tennessee program, more better than anyone I know, and tells it like it is. So, Mike, we know, the Butch Jones allegations came out yesterday. Can you update us on that and what is Tennessee doing right now? And of course, the athletic director Hart had his press conference today as well.
Well, Dave, Tennessee's really facing these allegations much more aggressively than what a lot of people thought. It's one of the surprises about Tennessee's response is how aggressive they're being. Like you said, the athletic director Dave Hart had his press conference today. Tennessee played every single NCAA in the program out yesterday for a joint press conference. Ball wasn't there traveling, and then more aggressively, Tennessee made three available tonight for media on-air comments to face several former players chime in through media through outlets. So this is how readily the program and the university are being on record with facing the allegations. Butch Jones had the allegations come out yesterday about telling one of the players who assisted two of the females from the A.J. Johnson incident, saying that Butch Jones told him he was a traitor to the team. A lot of conflicting stories about that, which goes to the frustration that Tennessee fans are having. There's just a lot of unsubstantiated back and forth, he said, she said kind of stuff for multiple instances of the Title IX investigation. That's really the frustration with Tennessee fans. There's nothing definitive on either side for a lot of cases. In some instances, from older cases, there are some definitive stuff. But for the most part, the Butch Jones situation continues to progress. All the other of this Title IX investigation. It's just kind of she said Butch Jones had a very aggressive come out today in its defense, and there's a lot of interesting facets to it. Of course, Drae Bowles went to the bowl game, the 2015 bowl game, with the team. There's even a picture out there of Drae Bowles and Butch Jones hugging after the bowl game victory. Of course, that was 2 months after the incident when Coach Jones was alleged to have told him that he was a traitor. So that's very interesting. The university, outside of the athletic department, the university itself conducted an investigation into these allegations after the A.J. Johnson incident. Came up nothing. So a lot of the frustration with all fans is there's just a lot of stuff out there, and there's really no definitive evidence either way. And that's really causing a lot of the frustration with the fan base.
Yeah, speaking of the fan base, I think it's weird. I'm a Florida fan. People can know and can tell, and you're a Tennessee fan, and we're getting to see both sides. This is a rivalry, but more than just Florida fans. There's Georgia fans, there's Alabama fans, and of course, they have their views, and Tennessee fans have their views. What are you seeing from the fan side of you? Is it blindly supporting, Tennessee fans blindly supporting the program just because of the color orange? Are they really looking into it? And I can see from our side, there are fans who are just blindly not supporting Tennessee just because it's a rival, and that's not the right way to look about it. Are you seeing that from the Tennessee side as well? Are they blindly supporting or blindly diminishing the fact that anything happened?
I'll be honest with you. I don't think they are blindly supporting the program just because they're fans. If you go back, and I'll tell you, in the Butch Jones era, this is pretty clear. If you go back to the A.J. Johnson incident, A.J. Johnson was a very popular player. The allegations came out the weekend after the Kentucky game. I think he was the SEC's leading tackler at that point, and Butch Jones suspended him. And, A.J., and there was not an uproar from the fan base. The fan base didn't say get him back on the team. Let's wait till the court takes their time. It was just hey, the allegations out there. We can't have those allegations around the team. So, AJ's not part of the team anymore. The fan base kind of moved on from AJ Johnson after the allegation. He was suspended off the team immediately. So I think the fan base is really, again, it goes to the frustration I was talking about. The fan base thinks that, or I get the sense that the fan base thinks that Butch Jones has handled the last 3 years really well. If you had an allegation, you were off the team. Trayvon Polk came back to school after his incident, spent a year in school, and Butch Jones still didn't reinstate him to the football team. That was an area last year where we had a need. We needed a solid, dependable number 3 running back, and Butch Jones did not let Trayvon Polk come back on the team because of the domestic incident he had 2 years ago. AJ Johnson, same thing, suspended immediately after the Kentucky game, and the program kind of moved on from him. We had the Pearson incident last year where he was immediately removed from team activities until he was cleared by law enforcement and then came back onto the team. So I don't think the fan base is blindly supporting the program. If there was something out there, if there was credible evidence, I think the fan base would say, hey, you know what, this is not what we're about. We're better than that. But there's not a lot of that credible evidence out there. Here's another surprise. I talked about the first surprise being how aggressive Tennessee's coming out. I think the other surprise for the Tennessee fan base is that a lot of the stuff that's coming out is under Butch Jones. I think a lot of Tennessee fans are really not really wanting to dive into the late Fulmer era, the Kiffin era, and the Dooley era. There was a lot of I'll be honest with you. There's word around Knoxville of a lot of shenanigans that went on during that time period. There's actually something called the Fulmer Cup, named after those late teams of the Fulmer era, that kind of crowns the team that has the most arrests in the season. We kind of say that tongue in cheek, but some more of the frustration of the fan base is that people are looking at the last 3 years of the Butch Jones era, which we think we're getting better. We're certainly getting better academically. The numbers show that we're getting better. From that, what I call the dark period, 2004 to 2012, kind of what I call the dark period of Tennessee football. I think the fans expect that there's going to be some stuff that comes out of that era. I don't think the fans were expecting the bookend going all the way back to Peyton and then attacking the Butch Jones program so much. It was that area in between that we knew was kind of an area that probably had some skeletons in our program closet.
Right, and the reason I bring that up, I put on the poll question this morning, and I asked fans, do they believe the allegations made against Tennessee head coach Butch Jones? And of course, not of our fan base for our SEC breakdown Twitter page is spread throughout different fan bases throughout the SEC, and it was overwhelmingly 78% just said they do believe it. Nobody replied as to why they believe it, and probably none of them really can give a reason why. They just blindly probably said yes that they do. So it was interesting to see how the majority was, but that's how these things mostly turn out. I knew when I posted it that was probably going to be the outcome, but I still wanted to get a gauge and kind of see where people stood on it. I wanted to dive into the Bowles, the player who's or is now saying Butch Jones said these things about him being a traitor. But Mike, what can be the outcome of now people are saying he testified in front of a grand jury and now his sworn affidavit is not matching his testimony. Can you catch us up on that and where does that stand since these things don't match now? Why would that have changed now?
Well, first of all, to the best of my knowledge, is that Bowles' testimony to the grand jury in the A.J. Johnson case is not public record. There was an article, and Bowles did make some comments to the media after his grand jury testimony, but I'm not so sure anyone that wasn't in the grand jury room knows exactly what he said. But all indications coming out of his interaction with the media after that grand jury testimony did not mention any threatening incident or any adverse interaction with Butch Jones. And like I said earlier, he stayed on the team. He went to the bowl game in 2015. He traveled with the team to the bowl game. There's a picture on the internet of record of Bowles and Jones hugging, embracing in the locker room after the bowl game, which is kind of you would wonder why that would happen if there was such a adversarial meeting between the two. He stayed back and ran extra routes with Peyton Manning when he came after the A.J. Johnson incident. And he chose to travel with the team as well. There are a lot of people are saying that if he was so uncomfortable, why would he choose to stay around the program and even travel with the team to the bowl game? And then you have the players tonight saying, hey, we're in the locker room and we didn't know anything about either the attack or the alleged attack from a current teammate or the incident with Coach Jones. So there's a lot of back and forth. Bowles hasn't really made a public statement. It's of note he did transfer after the 2015 season, played the last season at Tennessee Chattanooga. But it is of note that Bowles hasn't made any public statements that I'm aware of. Most of what everyone's quoting Bowles is either from his media accounts after the A.J. Johnson incident, what people think his grand jury testimony was, and then what the plaintiffs put into their allegations. Now that was stuff from Bowles in a legal manner, but he, as far as I know, he has not made any public comments to any media lately. It's all been through the lawyers representing the plaintiffs of the Title IX lawsuit that Tennessee faces. So again, that kind of goes to the frustration. A lot of stuff that doesn't seem to match the lawsuit on the outside versus what the lawsuit says. So that's really what's driving Tennessee fans nuts right now, causing the frustration is all the stuff in the lawsuit doesn't match what we see on the outside.
We'll dive into more of this courts thing, one more thing, and then we can maybe see what happens with Tennessee on the field with this happening. But going back to the court thing for right now, I got to follow Butch Jones around for a week, about a little over a year ago when Tennessee was in town here in Jacksonville when they were playing in a Tax Slayer Bowl against Iowa. And I was really impressed with what I saw with Butch Jones. I liked his demeanor. I liked the way he handled his players. And this is something that's going along those lines. The players seemed to react to him well. He was cordial with the media when we were all in Jacksonville for a week. And I had of course, and I'm not connected in any bit, just that 1 week, and it was hard for me to see a coach putting a player in this position. And you're just risking so much. And after getting to know Butch Jones for a week, yes, it's not much, but I just don't see that happening. But I did like the way you also said Tennessee was aggressive. Butch Jones personally last night was aggressive with his statement. He didn't necessarily have to come out and say what he needed to say about defending himself and defending his character, but he did. And I think if he gets out in front of it like this, it's really weird that he would come out that much if there was just this much more going on behind the scenes.
Yeah, your PR specialist would tell you that the best case for this scenario is for the program and the coaches to stay quiet, the players to stay quiet, stay off the record, one, for optics, PR optics, and two, for legal reasons, and then settle this case as quick as possible. Again, going back to my first surprise is how aggressive Tennessee's been in their press releases and their press statements, making the players available tonight. Jones's strong statement last night, and then the joint press conference with the coaches. So it looks like Tennessee's being very aggressive with this. I have a hard time thinking they're going to let this go to trial. Again, that 2004 to 2012 period was not a good time for Tennessee. I think they're being aggressive to kind of force the plaintiffs into a settlement, and probably a lower settlement than what they're looking for. But I've been very surprised with how aggressive Tennessee's been. I would tell you from a PR perspective, anybody who's this aggressive is very confident in their position normally from a PR perspective. So I think that's kind of reinforced the fan base's confidence in the program. The fan base thinks that it wouldn't be this aggressive if there was a lot of merit to the long list of allegations and accusations in the Title IX lawsuit. So again, I'm like you. I'm a little surprised with how aggressive Tennessee's been in their counter PR campaign. It's risky from a PR perspective and a legal perspective. It is very risky. That risk is if there's actual video or audio evidence out there contrary to something that one of these coaches says, then you've really put yourself in a bind. So it's risky. But we'll see how it plays out, and we'll see if it pays off for Tennessee in the end. The flip side of the risk, the reason you assume this risk, is that if you do settle or you do come out on top, it looks like you were in the right the whole time. So there's very much a risk reward proposition in the aggressiveness of Tennessee's PR campaign. We'll see how it turns out.
Mike, and I hate to ask you to be a fortune teller or anything, but is there any way Tennessee just let this plays out and there's not a settlement? Are they confident enough to let it play out in the throughout the whole system and stuff, or do you really just think they are ready to get it over with?
Letting it play out would be extremely risky. You have the federal funds. I mean, it would be unprecedented as far as big time universities go to let this play out and have the verdict go the wrong way as far as the Title IX lawsuit in federal court. Extremely risky. And I'll tell you right now, the administration will get pressure from other schools, because if Tennessee lets this play out and the verdict goes the wrong way against Tennessee, then a precedent is set across college campuses. At last count, there was 109 Title IX investigations open. Of course, Colorado's had a lawsuit that they settled. Florida State had theirs last year that they settled. But at last count, there's 109 Title IX investigations by the federal government going on. And if Tennessee lets this lawsuit play out in federal court and it goes against the university, that is a dangerous precedent to set for all the other universities out there, the 109 under investigation. And I think Tennessee's leadership will get pressure from other schools if they indicate that they're going to let this play out in federal court. I think they'll get pressure from a lot of other schools saying, asking them to settle this just to be on the safe side, so that it doesn't set a precedent. That would be disastrous if they let it play out in federal court and win against the university.
And you brought up FSU, being here in Florida, I hear a lot about that case, but, and the cases are, much different, dealing with the whole Jameis Winston allegation and that, and, how all that went down. But the message kind of sent there was, and maybe I'm getting a different view of it, but it was FSU, paid money to, and once they did that, people kind of took that as they kind of admitted their guilt in a way. Is that any view on Tennessee? If that's how it happens, if they decide to settle, that they're kind of admitting guilt, but they're just paying it off?
Well, I mean, I think that's the risk you take with every settlement. Every settlement is a legal statement of non-acknowledgement of fault or whatever the legal jargon is. But everybody thinks that you settled just so you don't go to court. The Title IX is interesting. That the difference between the Tennessee case and the Florida State and Colorado case is there are really two major components to Title IX: the before clause and the after clause. Colorado's lawsuit from, I believe, 2009 centered around the before clause, saying that the university created a poor atmosphere or an atmosphere that did not allow females to succeed, and that was before a student came to school. The after clause is what you saw at Florida State, saying that after an incident happened, the school was negligent in their duties to handle it. The difference with Tennessee is the plaintiffs have invoked both the before clause and the after clause, and they made this lawsuit about 25 years span. So they've said that the last 25 years of the culture violates the before clause, and that they've been violating the after clause for the majority of that 25 years. So it's a much more comprehensive lawsuit than what Colorado and Florida State faced. It's a much more dangerous lawsuit for the university than the Florida State and Colorado faced. So I think, going back to asking me to play fortune teller, I cannot see Tennessee letting this play out in federal court. I don't think they care how the fan base sees it. I think a settlement is as 100% as you can get without actually having a crystal ball. I cannot see this being allowed to play out in federal court.
So crystal ball time and fortune teller time, one more time. Does this in any way affect the team on the field? Does this bring them closer together? Does it, is there anything, is there, a scenario in their head where they think their coach could be gone if something goes the wrong way? How does Tennessee go into spring practice, with all the eyes set on the SEC East crown?
I'll be honest with you. I don't think this affects the team on the field. Alvin Kamara, Josh Dobbs, and Jalen Reeves-Maybin spoke to the media tonight. Their comments were very, I think, reassuring for Vol fans. They specifically mentioned their faith in the program and their faith in the culture. Several former players have commented in the last 24 to 48 hours about their confidence in the program and in Butch Jones. So I think I don't think this is going to affect Tennessee on the field. I don't certainly not going to make them better, but I don't think they're going to see any adverse effects to this. Might it hurt recruiting? I think this will be over with before we really get into the 2017 recruiting cycle. It might hurt your non-revenue sports recruiting. It might hurt softball recruiting or basketball recruiting or swimming recruiting, those types of sports. But I don't think right now it's going to hurt your football recruiting. I don't think it's going to have any effect really whatsoever on the field. There's really no this is all a federal Title IX case. There's really no mention of NCAA infractions here at all. So I don't think it's going to affect the team on the field, quite frankly.
And one more thing before we wrap it up, we just briefly hit on Tennessee going into spring practice. Mike, what is the main focus for Tennessee going into spring ball besides, just letting go of this whole allegation thing, getting on the field and getting ready to go for practice?
Yeah, I think other than ignoring the distraction. So the middle game, they'll have to work on their middle game, ignoring all the press reports, ignoring all the media, addressing all the questions. But as far as on the field, I think the first thing they have to do is work on their vertical passing game. If the vertical passing game can get in sync, this team has a shot to do something special next year. If they can get an effective vertical passing game going, I really think they have a shot at the playoffs. The second thing they have to do is get some guys with depth, some reps. So Butch Jones's past two recruiting classes were about getting freshmen in and getting 5 stars and getting them to plan. The last recruiting class, the last 2 recruiting classes, he's kind of focused on building depth and building the bench as well. So they address a couple key areas. The third running back, really get the receivers in sync. The receivers just look desynchronized all year. More reps at the line. Like I said, with Joshua Dobbs getting that vertical passing game going. And then on defense, just installing the new Shoop's defense and getting the players used to his system. And they look good. I think we got 18 returning starters. They just got to nail down a few things from last year, get more reps because they were still a young team last year. We can't use the youth excuse this year. Absolutely not. But get a lot of reps, especially for your depth guys. And that vertical passing game is the key. If they can get that vertical passing game going, they will be a dangerous, dangerous team.
Folks, you're not going to get much better insight than on Tennessee than Mike Loveall from Last Word on Sports there. Tennessee's got their eyes set on the SEC's crown, and it's going to be coming down to the Florida-Georgia games, or as always. But Tennessee, when media days rolls around, they're definitely going to be picked to win the East. But Mike, any last thoughts?
No last thoughts. Nothing good's going to come out of this thing. I'll tell you, the fan base is really torn with the Tennessee thing. No one wants to look like they're insensitive to possible victims. Joshua Dobbs talked about that with the media tonight. He basically said if there are victims, we hope they find peace. He handled it in a very mature fashion, handled it very well. None of the fans want to be looked at as being insensitive to possible victims. But on the other side, we live in an era of all-time high in transparency of programs. We have reporters and media in the training complexes. We see the players on social media. We see them on news all the time. We see them on television all the time. We have reporters that have more access than they've ever had. And so the fans think the culture is good. So the fans are having a really hard time. They feel like they're in between a rock and a hard place. They don't want to be insensitive to possible victims. We don't want to be the fan base doesn't want to be seen like a fan base that doesn't care about discipline and rules. They want to be cognizant of the world around them, but at the same time, the allegations just don't match what we see in the program. So the fans are very frustrated. Part of that frustration is with some of the media people who are just putting out stories that just don't match the facts that are out there. The Peyton Manning thing was a horrible way to start this dialogue off for Vol Nation fans. It was just completely the worst way to start this off because you immediately paint a false narrative of what's out there, and that just turned Vol fans the wrong way. So there's going to be no winners in this. It's a tough time for everyone involved. Nobody's going to come out of this winner. It's probably going to get worse before it gets better. The plaintiffs will continue to file legal motions that paint a bad picture of the culture. The school is going to continue to be aggressive, and both sides are going to let this play out for a little bit longer before it gets better. So it's going to get worse before it gets better, and the fan base is really not looking forward to it. It has not been a good 3 weeks for the Tennessee fan base. The fan base is ready for football to start.
I think we all are. As much as it's the off season. That's when these type of things happen. But when teams get on the field, we seem to as much as we can forget about things like this. I think we're all ready for at least some spring football. To get our minds off of this.
But hey, that's exactly what I'm talking about. The fan base recognizes that these are serious allegations and these are serious issues that go beyond sports. The fan base does not. If this is true, if this is the culture on the campus, the fan base doesn't want that culture to be the culture of the campus. The fan base doesn't want football to start so that people will forget about this. The fan base wants football to start to reassure them that the culture at Tennessee is not what this lawsuit says it is. But again, going back to the fan base being between rock and hard place, they don't want this to be the culture, but they recognize the serious allegations of the lawsuit. Any fan in his or her right mind would recognize the seriousness of the lawsuit, and that's one of the reasons why Tennessee fans are just so frustrated with the situation right now. But I want to make it clear that the fan base has discussed at length that they understand the seriousness of the allegations made against the program and the school.
Mike, thanks so much. We do this every week. We try and do this every week. I think we missed last week for the first time. But, every week at 9 o'clock, we are as close to 9 o'clock as we can get. We'll do a half hour to an hour show. I think we hit about 40 minutes tonight, 35, 40 minutes. So that was pretty good. But, Mike, that was great talk. We're here on SEC Breakdown. We're trying to pump up this, feed a little bit. You'll catch us on Twitter, and we'll try and interact there. Like I said, we do these videos every week, but Mike, really, really great insight on Tennessee tonight, and we'll get this out, and I think we'll get some good feedback from this. So this is David Waters, SEC Breakdown. Mike, Loveall, Last Word on Sports, and also SEC Breakdown. Thanks for joining us, and we'll catch you guys next week.
Dave, always a pleasure.
Thanks, Mike.